Today we are talking about the wild, fairy tale inspired, lesser known, very problematic Shakespeare play, Cymbeline. This play is a comedy, sometimes considered a romance, definitely falls in the category of a problem play. The story takes place in Britain back when the Roman Empire was in charge of it. Cymbeline is the king, the Roman Empire's vassal king of Britain. He had two sons that were stolen as infants, and that will be important later. The only reason it matters now is because he's only got a girl left. Her name is Imogen, and she's cool. Now, she's in love with this dude named Posthumus, but he's of a lower social rank. Because she's the only living child of the monarchy needs her to marry another monarch to keep the bloodline going. So her dad forbids them to be together, even though they have already married. He sends Posthumus away to keep them apart, but he and Imogen exchange jewelry before. He gives her a bracelet, she gives him a ring. Now, in very fairy tale fashion, she also has a stepmother who is evil. The stepmother has a grown son named Cloten, and she wants Imogen to marry Cloten so that the royal bloodline will be hers. She's also planning to murder her once she has the baby and murder Cymbeline so that she can take over. So she gets this deadly poison from the doctor, but the doctor is suspicious, so instead of giving her a poison, he gives her a sleeping potion, but she doesn't know that. She gives the drug to a servant of Imogen's, Pisanio, and that will come into play later. So Imogen secludes herself in her chambers to keep away from Cloten, who keeps trying to get at her, and Posthumus gets sent to Italy. Now, while he's there, he meets this other soldier who brags that he can seduce Imogen, saying any woman, no matter how faithful, can be seduced. So this guy, his name is Iachimo, makes a bet that he can seduce Imogen. Posthumus agrees to this, says if Iachimo wins, he will give him the ring that Imogen gave him. Iachimo goes back to Britain, tries to seduce Imogen, but she doesn't want him, and so he fails. So instead, he hides in a chest that he has servants put in her bedchamber, and while she's asleep, he gets out, looks at her body, sees that she has this mole on her breast, and steals a bunch of her stuff, including Posthumus's bracelet that he gave. When he goes back and proves to Posthumus that he had sex with Imogen, Posthumus gets mad and sends servants to go murder her. However, that loyal servant earlier, Pisanio, the one the queen gave the poison that's really a sleeping potion, but he has not given it to Imogen because he's loyal. Well, he does not kill her and warns her, and so she dresses as a boy and runs away, calling herself Fidele, which means fidelity, which, she's been faithful. So Imogen and the servant head to Wales, and Cloten, the evil son of the evil stepmother, finds out where she's going. He dresses in Posthumus's clothes so that he can trick her, SA her, abduct her, and bring her back to marry him and do the whole bloodline thing. Because the men in this story just get worse and worse. So Imogen is traveling through the Welsh mountains and her health is declining, and they come across this cave where this man lives with his two sons, but guess what? They're the abducted twins from the beginning of the story. So they're actually her brothers, but none of them know that. Their dad, Belarius, got banished from Cymbeline's court and took the boys with him. Their names are Polydore and Cadwal. So they take her in. They also specifically have this homoerotic attraction to Fidele, who's really Imogen. They just are like, I don't know why we're into this dude, but we want to be friends with him. So one day while Imogen's inside, Cloten shows up outside the cave and insults these mountain men. So they cut his head off. Yay! I love when Cloten dies. Now here's where it gets very Snow White, because Imogen keeps feeling sicker and sicker. And so remember how her servant Pisanio has that sleeping potion? She thinks it must be a medicine of some sort. She takes it, she falls into this deep sleep, and no one can wake her up. So the men find her, think she's dead, mourn her, put her body next to the headless Cloten's body, and go off to get ready for the double burial. But while they're gone, Imogen wakes up, finds herself next to this headless body wearing Posthumus clothes, and assumes it must be Posthumus. Now at the same time, this Roman dude, Cassius Lucius, is leading an army against Cymbeline because Cymbeline is refusing to pay his British tribute to the Romans. So like everyone else, Lucius really likes Fidele and says, hey, will you come be a page boy for me? And Imogen thinks, I got nothing left to live for, sure. So she joins his army as a page boy. Now Posthumus, who feels super guilty about everything that he's done, joins the Roman army, kind of hoping he'll die. So basically everything comes to a head when the army invades and Cymbeline and the Romans fight. Because Belarius and the two sons, Cadwal and Polymore, they've also joined the fight. They and Posthumus help rescue Cymbeline, and capture Lucius and Iachimo, saving the day. But again, Posthumus, even though he helped save Cymbeline, allows himself to be captured. He was on the other side because he feels so guilty, and he ends up in prison with Imogen, who is still pretending to be Fedele. And again, he is attracted to Fedele, finds him beautiful and familiar. Imogen sees Posthumus' ring on Iachimo and demands to know how he got it, and he reveals the whole, oh, I tricked him into thinking I slept with his wife. Imogen's like, oh, I get it. And then she sees Posthumus is actually still alive, so she throws herself at him. But he, even though he finds her attractive, is still not down with this and knocks her down because he thinks she's a dude. But then Pisanio, the servant, rushes in to say, hey, this is actually your wife. And he also then tells everyone the queen tried to poison her too, and you, Cymbeline. Belarius comes forward and says, hey, these two guys, Cymbeline, they're actually your sons. I stole them when I got banished, but I got banished through a whole setup anyway, and I was always innocent, so you really shouldn't blame me. So now that her brothers exist to inherit the throne, Imogen can marry someone who isn't of royal blood, so now she can be with Posthumus, who she has apparently forgiven for trying to kill her. The evil stepmother queen dies because she couldn't handle the grief of losing her son, and on her deathbed confessed to everything. So Cymbeline blames his whole not paying the Roman tribute on her. Convenient, because she's dead. And now there's peace between Britain and Rome, and everything is solved, and they have a great feast. Now, the tragedy and comedy in this story is kind of beautifully combined, as is Shakespeare's use of many different fairy tale motifs, putting them together. The whole Imogen and Posthumus plot is taken from a story from the Decameron, an Italian set of tales from the 1300s that I have another video over. And like in that story, Imogen is just better than everyone else, and she could do a lot better than her crap husband. But he's who she wants, so what are you gonna do? Critics have long disliked how complex the plot is, particularly the ending, the whole third act. Irish playwright George Bernard Shaw wrote that the end of Cymbeline was stagey trash of the lowest melodramatic order, abominably written, intentionally vulgar, and judged through modern intellectual standards, foolish, offensive, indecent, and exasperating all tolerance. He went on to write Cymbeline Refinished, which was his own reimagining because he wanted to make it better. But some people argue that Cymbeline is kind of genius because it parodies its own content. Shakespeare himself seems to be parodying his previous plays and a lot of their crazy plots in this story. Imogen dressing as a man, as many Shakespeare characters do, but never are so many men attracted to them as a man as they are in this story, which makes for some really interesting gender and queer studies. Is it a problem play full of crazy coincidences and contradictions? Yes, but so are fairy tales, the stories that it's based on. They made a movie of Cymbeline in 2014 with Ethan Hawke, Ed Harris, Mila Jovovich, John Leguizamo, and Dakota Johnson that I've never seen, but I kind of want to. Oh, and also Penn Badgley, the guy who stars in You, the Netflix series where he's a stalker and murderer. He plays Posthumus in that movie, which actually totally fits and might be the reason I watch it. Check out my book, Dust Spells, which is a reimagining of the fairy tale, The 12 Dancing Princesses, or The Shoes That Were Danced to Pieces by the Brothers Grimm. And check out my podcast, Folk Tales and Fairy Lore. The link is in the bio.